Today, we are first going back to the 1920s. Then we are going to dissect an experiment which destroyed the humans as a machine concept in workplaces. And in the end, we will be discussing some simple conclusions from these experiments that is going to skyrocket the productivity in businesses, groups, organizations, or in any place where people are involved. Before we begin, just think whether increasing the lighting of your workplace can increase the productivity of your employees or people in your organization. If you haven't subscribed my channel yet, please subscribe and press the bell notification. I am in a mission to experiment and find different ways in which we all can grow to abundance. 1920s was a revolutionary period in the history of America. Henry Ford's development of the assembly line boosted both the employment and wages and started the modern American Industrial Revolution. Everywhere, more and more people started working in the industries. But somewhere along the assembly lines, workers often lost in the rush of production. Considered as the extension of the machinery, the industrial man was not important more than his output. Working conditions were difficult and the supervision were often autocratic. And in most cases, the benefits were least for the employees. This was the time when Western Electric Company's Hawthorne Works in Chicago started an experiment which later became a groundbreaking studies in human relations and was known by the name Hawthorne Studies. Chicago's Western Electric Hawthorne Works employed around 12,000 workers at that time. The plant was a primary manufacturer of telephones, and in 1924, the company started an experiment to determine the relationship between illumination and worker efficiency. The hypothesis was that with higher illumination, productivity will increase. In the first series of experiments, a group of workers were chosen. The group was exposed to varying intensities of illumination. The researchers found that as they increased the illumination, the production also increased, which was not a surprise because it was expected. But when the intensity of illumination decreased, then also the production continued to increase. The production in the experimental group decreased only when the illumination was decreased to the level of moonlight. The decrease was due to the light falling much below the normal level. Thus, it was concluded that illumination did not have any effect on productivity. But something else was interfering with the productivity. At that time, it was concluded that human factor was important in determining productivity, but which aspect was affecting it was not sure. Therefore, another phase of experiments was undertaken. The second phase was relay assembly text room experiments. This experiment was designed to find the effects of various job conditions on group productivity. For this purpose, the researchers set up a relay assembly text room and 2 girls were chosen. These girls were asked to choose their co-workers. The work was related to the assembly of telephone relays. Each relay consisted of a number of parts which girls assembled into finished products. Output depended on the speed and continuity in which the girls worked. The experiment started with introducing numerous changes in sequence with duration of each ranging from 4 to 12 weeks. And the results were compared and studied. An observer was associated with girls to supervise their work. Before each change was introduced, the girls were consulted. They were given opportunity to express their viewpoints and concerns to the supervisor. In some cases, they were allowed to take decisions on matters concerning them. At first, the incentive system was changed so that each girl's extra pay was based on the other 5 rather than output of the whole workers in the company. This increased the productivity as compared to before. Then, 2 5-minute rest periods, one in the morning session and other in the evening sessions were introduced, which were further increased to 10 minutes, and the productivity increased. Then the rest period was reduced to 5 minutes, but frequency was increased. At this point, the productivity decreased, and the girls complained that frequent rest intervals affected the rhythm of the work. Then the researchers reduced the number of rest to 2 10-minute sessions, but in the morning, coffee or soup was served along with the sandwich, and in the evening, snacks were provided. This also increased the productivity. Then changes in the working hours and work day were introduced, such as cutting an hour off the end of the day and eliminating Saturday work. The girls were allowed to leave at 4:30 p.m. instead of usual 5 p.m. and later at 4 p.m. Then also the productivity increased. As each change was introduced, absenteeism decreased, morale increased, and less supervision was required. It was assumed that these positive factors were there because of the various factors being adjusted and making them more positive. At this time, the researchers decided to revert back to the normal working conditions, that is, same as the rest of the population. No rest, no other benefits. The researchers got shocked because again the productivity increased instead of going down. This development caused a considerable amount of redirection in thinking, and the result implied that productivity increased not because of the positive changes in physical factors, but because of the change in girls' attitude towards work and their work group. They developed a feeling of stability and a sense of belongings. Since there was more freedom of work, they developed a sense of responsibility and self-discipline. The relationship between supervisor and workers became close and friendly. The third phase of experiments was non-directive mass interviewing. About 20,000 interviews were conducted between 1928 and 1930 to determine employees' attitude towards company, supervision, insurance plans, promotion, and wages. The interview program gave valuable insights about the human behavior in the company. A complaint is not necessarily an objective recital of facts. It is a symptom of personal disturbance, and the cause will be deep-seated. That is, the complaints raised by the employees are not the exact facts, but there will be emotions involved, and that should be taken care of. Number 2. The personal situation of the worker and his past experience is related to employee satisfaction. And number 3, the social demands of the worker are influenced by social experience in groups both inside and outside the work plant. During the course of interviews, it was discovered that workers' behavior was being influenced by group behavior. So the researchers started the fourth phase of experiments, which was band wiring observation room experiment. These experiments were conducted to find out the impact of small groups on the individuals. In this experiment, a group of 14 male workers were formed into a small work group. The men were engaged in the assembly of terminal banks for the use in telephone exchange. The work involved attaching wire with the stitches for certain equipment used in telephone exchanges. Hourly wage for each worker was fixed on the basis of average output of each worker. Bonus was also payable on the basis of group effort. It was expected that highly efficient workers would bring pressure on the less efficient workers to increase output and take advantage of group incentive plan. However, the strategy did not work, and workers established their own standard of output, and this was enforced vigorously by various methods of social pressure. The workers cited various reasons for this behavior, like fear of unemployment, fear of increase in output, desire to protect slow workers, etc. The Hawthorne experiments clearly showed that a man at work is motivated by more than the satisfaction of economic needs. Management should recognize that people are essentially social beings and not merely economic beings. As a social being, they are members of a group, and the management should try to understand group attitudes and group psychology. Professor Mayo made many conclusions regarding human behavior on the basis of Hawthorne studies. which can be used in real case scenarios to skyrocket productivity. First one is social unit. A factory is not only a techno-economic unit but also a social unit. Men are social beings. This social characteristic at work plays an important role in motivating people. The output increased in relay room due to effective functioning of a social group with a warm relationship with its supervisors. Number 2 is group influence. The workers in a group develop a common psychological bond, uniting them as a group in the form of informal organization. Their behavior is influenced by these groups. Pressure of a group rather than management demands frequently has the strongest influence on how productive workers would be. And the number 3 is group behavior. Management must understand that a typical group behavior can dominate or even supersede individual behavior. Number 4 is about motivation. Human and social motivation can play even a greater role than mere monetary incentives. Number 5 is supervision. The style of supervision affects workers' attitude to work and its productivity. A supervisor who is friendly with his workers and takes interest in their social problems can get cooperation and better results from subordinates. Number 6 is working conditions. Productivity increases as a result of improved working conditions in the organization. Number 7 is employee morale. Mayo pointed out that workers were not simply machines. Instead, the employee morale, both individual and in groups, can have profound effects on productivity. Number 8 is communication. Experiments have shown that the output increases when workers are explained the logic behind various decisions, and their participation in decision making brings better results. Number 9 is balanced approach. The problems of workers could not be solved by taking one factor. Management could not achieve the results by emphasizing one aspect. All the things should be discussed and decisions should be taken for improving the whole situation. A balanced approach to the whole situation can show better results. Now, I am coming back to the question I have asked before. Can you increase the productivity of your employees by increasing the lighting of your workplace?